Captain Ibrahim Traoré, the current leader of Burkina Faso, everyone has been talking about him. Many consider him a hero and the leader of a revolution the Burkina Faso has long longed for. I personally have been very interested in what is happening in Burkina Faso, in his government, and where it's going to, because I believe that it could be the start, the beginning of something even bigger, and that will not only benefit Burkina Faso, but possibly Africa at large. So I decided to talk about it with you guys because, as you know, that's what we do here. So let's not waste any time and let's talk about it, guys. Captain Ibrahim Traoré has been the interim leader of Burkina Faso since seizing power in a military coup in September 2022, ousting fellow officer Paul Henry Sandaogo Damiba at just 34 years old at the time. Traoré became the world's youngest head of state. He rose to prominence amid growing frustration within the military over the government's failure to contain a jihadist insurgency that has plagued the country since 2015.
A 34-year-old captain storms to power, tells the IMF to take a hike, and nationalizes his country's gold. Captain Ibrahim Traoré is transforming Burkina Faso with fearless reforms. But at what cost? Is he leading a revolution or risking ruin? Hang on, because what's happening here could shake Africa and the world to its core.
Since taking power, Traoré has positioned himself as a war leader, focused on reclaiming territory from jihadist groups. In April 2023, he declared a general mobilization of the population to support the military, pledging to reconquer all rebel-held areas and stating that elections could not be held until the insurgents were pushed back and the security situation improved. In May 2024, national consultations boycotted by most political parties resulted in the extension of Traoré's mandate for an additional 5 years, allowing him to contest the next presidential elections. Traoré has sought to distance Burkina Faso from its former colonial power, France, and has forged closer ties with Russia and Turkey. In February 2023, French forces were expelled from the country, and by January 2024, Russian troops, including members of the Wagner Group, were deployed in Burkina Faso. Traoré's leadership has been met with both support and criticism. He has become a symbol of resistance against foreign exploitation for some, while others view him as a paranoid autocrat. His government has been accused of censorship and abuses by security forces, including civilian killings. Despite efforts to combat the jihadist insurgency, the security situation in Burkina Faso remains dire. In August 2024, one of the deadliest jihadist attacks in the country's history occurred in Barcelona, resulting in at least 100 civilian deaths. The attack highlighted the escalating violence and the challenges Traoré's government faces in restoring security. As of May 2025, Burkina Faso is experiencing significant political unrest centered around its military leader, Captain Ibrahim Traoré. Recent events have sparked both domestic and international reactions, highlighting the country's complex political landscape. On April 30th, 2025, thousands rallied in Burkina Faso's capital in support of the ruling military junta following a recently failed coup attempt and criticism from U.S. General Michael Langley, who accused junta leader Captain Ibrahim Traoré of misusing gold reserves. The protest featured anti-American sentiment support for Traoré and displays of solidarity with Russia. The junta alleged the coup plotters were based in neighboring Ivory Coast. Demonstrators carried giant posters of junta, leader Captain Ibrahim Traoré, and Burkinabe and Russian flags. Solidarity protests under the banner Hands Off the AES have swept across West Africa, including Ghana and Liberia, expressing support for Burkina Faso and its revolutionary leader, Captain Ibrahim Traoré. These demonstrations, led by grassroots organizations and people's movements, strongly condemned foreign interference and affirmed the support for the country's resistance against imperialist destabilization. On May 9, 2025, Captain Ibrahim Traoré, the interim president of Burkina Faso, attended Russia's Victory Day celebrations in Moscow, marking the 80th anniversary of the end of World War II. His presence underscored the strengthening ties between Burkina Faso and Russia, particularly as the West African nation pivots away from traditional Western alliances.
It is an honor for me this morning to speak here and to pass on the fraternal greetings from the people of the country of honest men. This is also the place for me. First of all, I want to give thanks to God Almighty, who has allowed us to gather here this morning in good health to talk about the future and the well-being of our peoples. I want to apologize to the elders I might offend with my upcoming words. African identity demands the rights of birth. I must apologize. Comrades, I have a few questions from my generation. No one is a question we ask, but we have no answers.
Geopolitical implications. Traoré's participation in the Victory Day events and his engagement with Russian leadership reflect a broader shift in Burkina Faso's foreign policy. By aligning more closely with Russia, Burkina Faso aims to assert its sovereignty and reduce reliance on Western nations, particularly France. This realignment is part of the larger trend among some African nations seeking diversified international partnerships. Guys, everything that has been happening in Burkina Faso has been a long time coming. And this is why. For those who may not be aware of the history of the alliances that African countries have had with Western countries, specifically in this particular case, France, they have been incredibly unfair. They have been exploitive in nature. It basically is France taking advantage of the natural resources in its former colonies, and those countries getting nothing in return. And this has made it so that these countries have remained in poverty, have remained in unrest, and all sorts of things. And honestly, you don't even need to take my word for it. You can just Google it and see for yourself. When you talk about freedom from colonization, I've said it in this particular podcast before. It was freedom, but it wasn't freedom, because they still, till date, hold these countries, in my opinion, and in many people's opinion, hold them to a point where they're not truly liberated and they're not truly free. They have unfair trade agreements with them. They have unfair alliances with them, unfair partnerships that only favor them and do not favor those African countries. So it's no surprise that this leader has come up now and is like, France, we don't want to do business with you anymore. We're done. Pack your things, leave. We're done with you. It was going to happen eventually. Now, I'm not a fan of Russia, so I don't know about this alliance with Russia. What I do hope is that whatever agreements that they get into now, partnerships, at least let them be fair. Let them truly be fair, and let them favor the people of Burkina Faso. And I also hope that for other African countries that are trying to emulate what Burkina Faso is doing right now, what the government is doing, that they should be very careful of the partnerships that they form with these other countries, because you don't want to go from one colonizer to another. And that's something that they have to be very careful about. I'm not a fan of Russia. I'm saying it again. I am not a fan of what they do. I don't trust them. So I am a little bit wary of these partnerships going on, but I am not against breaking free from the oppression of the colonizers once and for all. That I'm not against. I believe that every country should be free. Partnerships should be fair. Agreements can be made, alliances can be made, but they have to be fair for all the parties involved and not only fair to some and unfair to others. And I really do hope to see the liberation of Africa. I don't know if we're going to see it in our lifetime, but it's something that I really hope that we get to see. And so for me, this is very encouraging, honestly. And that is why you're seeing the protests that are going on all over. Because with that failed coup attempt that occurred, where they were trying to get Captain Ibrahim out, which, as far as I'm concerned, had some backing by some of these Western countries that did not like what he was doing, aka France. That's what I think. I'm glad it didn't work out. And I'm glad that people protested because people saw it for what it was. I'm not a fan of dictatorships, don't get me wrong, but I like what he's doing and why he's doing it and where he's trying to get to with this. And I also like the fact that he may actually run for president. So after stabilizing things to a good point, when elections finally do take place again in Burkina Faso, he will be able to run for president and he'll be able to be a duly elected president. Hopefully without the interference of France. Because as we know, these countries like to interfere in African elections and put people that will benefit them and not benefit their own citizens. And this has been ongoing, not just in Burkina Faso, but quite frankly, in all of Africa. So yeah, you know me, I'm about fairness. I'm about justice. I'm about justice for all. That's what I care about. So I'm going to be following this story more closely. I'm going to come back and give you even more information on it. And don't leave me here to just be talking to myself. Tell me what you think. Go to the comment section. If you disagree with me, I want to hear your opinion. If you agree with me, I want to know why. Tell me your own opinion. And thank you so much for tuning in today. As usual, God bless.